I held that crystal star in my hands, feeling its weight, the sharp points pressing against my palm. The Christmas tree glowed behind me, the lights blinking as if they were silent witnesses to what was about to happen. My grandfather was sitting in the living room armchair, drunk, laughing that hoarse laugh that made me feel nauseous. No one else was home. It was just me and him and that crystal star that had been at the top of the tree for years, decorating our celebrations, our family memories. I never imagined it would be this same star that would change everything, that would make blood stain the living room carpet, that would make my grandfather scream in a way I had never heard before, and that would make me someone I never thought I would be. My name is John. I'm 22 years old, and yes, I did what you're probably already imagining. I hurt my grandfather. No, it wasn't a punch, it wasn't a shove. It was something much worse, much more calculated, much more brutal. I took a crystal star, the one that sat at the top of our Christmas tree every year, and I stabbed it into him. I won't go into details right now about exactly where I stabbed that star, but you'll find out, and when you do, maybe you'll understand why I did it. Or maybe not. Maybe you'll judge me. Maybe you'll think I'm a monster. I spent 3 years in a juvenile detention center, 3 years away from my family, away from everything I knew. I got out 8 months ago. Now I live alone in a small apartment on the other side of town, far from all of them. I work in a warehouse, loading boxes, trying to rebuild something that resembles a life. But every night when I close my eyes, I see that room. I see the blood. I see his face. And I wonder if I would do it all again. The people who read about my case in the newspapers think they know the whole story. Young man attacks grandfather during Christmas dinner. Teenager commits brutal act at family gathering. Sensationalist headlines that don't tell even half of what happened. They don't know what he did to me that night. They don't know what he had been doing for years. They don't know the pain, the shame, the rage that grew inside me like a tumor you can't remove. I'm not here to apologize. I'm also not here to brag about what I did. I'm here because I need someone to know the truth, the complete truth. Not the version the lawyers told in court. Not the version my family whispers when they think no one is listening. My version. What really happened in that house, in his room, in the living room where the Christmas tree glowed with its colored lights, while my childhood died little by little. Before you judge me, before you close this video thinking I'm just another violent criminal, I ask you, listen to my story until the end, because what you don't know could completely change the way you see all of this. And maybe, just maybe, you'll understand why that crystal star became the only way out I could see. I was a normal kid, had friends at school, played football on weekends, liked video games. My family wasn't perfect, but it seemed functional. My mother worked as a nurse, my father was a salesman, and my paternal grandfather had lived with us since my grandmother died when I was 7 years old. He was always present, took me and my sister to the park, told stories before bed, made silly jokes at dinner. Everyone loved Grandpa Tony, but there's one thing about monsters. They're very good at wearing masks. If you're really paying attention to my story, if you want to know what really happened, I need you to do something for me now. Like this video, subscribe to the Traumatic Accounts channel, turn on notification bells, and in the comments tell me where you're watching from what city, from what state, from what country you're listening to me now, because I need to know that there are people really paying attention, that there are people who want to understand before judging. Do it now. I'll wait, because what comes next will change everything you think about me and about what happened that Christmas night. I'm going back in time, well before that Christmas night, before the crystal star, before the blood. I need you to understand how it all began, because nothing happens out of nowhere. Monsters don't appear suddenly. They grow slowly, feeding on silence and secrets. When my grandmother died, I was 7 years old. She had a stroke while cooking, fell in the kitchen, and hit her head on the ceramic floor. It was my grandfather who found her. I remember him screaming, calling the ambulance, crying while holding her hand. She died in the hospital 3 days later. My grandfather was devastated. He and my grandmother had been married for 42 years. They dated as teenagers, married young, had my father and my uncle. A beautiful love story, the kind people tell with nostalgia. After she died, my grandfather came to live with us. Our house had 3 bedrooms. My parents, the one I shared with my sister Emma, and the guest room that became his room. My father insisted. "I'm not going to let my dad live alone now," he said. He needs family nearby. My mother agreed. Everyone agreed. How could you not agree to help an elderly widower who had just lost the love of his life? In the first months, my grandfather stayed quiet. He spent most of his time in his room, only came out for meals. My mother left food at his door when he didn't want to come down. She said he was grieving, that he needed time. Gradually, he returned to normal, or at least to what seemed normal. He started making jokes again, started watching football with my father, started taking me and Emma for ice cream on Sundays. Everyone was relieved. "Grandpa's recovering," my mother would say, smiling. "He's strong." But there was something different, something I couldn't explain at the time, because I was just a child. It was the way he looked at me sometimes, a look that lasted a second longer than it should. It was the way he put his hand on my shoulder when he passed me in the hallway, his fingers squeezing a little too much. It was the way he always found an excuse to be alone with me. "John, come help me change the light bulb in my room. John, come watch this game with me while your parents go out. John, come here for a minute. I need to show you something." I never suspected. Why would I? He was my grandfather. He was part of the family. He loved me. That's what everyone said, and I believed it. The first time he really touched me, I was 9 years old. It was on a Saturday morning. My parents had taken my sister to the doctor because she had an ear infection. I had stayed home because I wasn't feeling sick, and my mother thought it would be boring for me to wait at the office. My grandfather offered to stay with me. We were watching cartoons in the living room when he called me to his room. He said he had found my old toys from when I was younger and wanted to show me. I went excitedly. When I entered the room, he closed the door behind me. Locked it. "Grandpa, why did you lock it?" I asked. "So your sister won't come in and mess with your things when she gets back." He answered, smiling. It made sense to me. Emma always messed with my things. I approached the box he had placed on the bed, but when I went to open it, he held my hand. His fingers were cold. "Before that, come here. Let Grandpa give you a hug. I miss you, John. Since your grandmother died, I miss affection." It was strange, but it was my grandfather. I approached. He pulled me into a tight hug, too tight. I could smell coffee on his breath, cigarette smell on his clothes. His hands started going down my back. Lower, lower, until they reached where they shouldn't. I pulled away quickly. My heart was beating fast, but I didn't understand why. "Grandpa, you—" "Shh," he said, putting a finger to his lips. "You don't need to be embarrassed, John. It's normal. Grandfathers and grandsons have a special relationship." I didn't know what to say, didn't know what to think. He opened the box and showed me the toys. We stayed there for about 20 minutes talking as if nothing had happened. When my parents came back, I ran down to meet them. My grandfather came down right after, smiling normally. That night, lying in my bed, I tried to understand what had happened. It had been strange, but maybe I was exaggerating. Maybe it was normal. He was my grandfather. Grandfathers don't do bad things. That's what I convinced myself. But that was just the beginning. In the following months, the special moments started happening more frequently. Always when we were alone, always with the door locked, always with him saying it was normal, that it was our secret, that I shouldn't tell anyone because people wouldn't understand. "Your father might get jealous," he would say. "He's always been jealous of my relationship with you." I was 10 years old, 11, 12, and with each year things got worse. The touches became more invasive, the situations more explicit. He started showing me pictures on his computer, started asking me questions about my body, about school, about whether I had a girlfriend. "You're growing up, John. You're becoming a man. Let me teach you some things." I started having nightmares, started having trouble sleeping. My grades at school plummeted. I became aggressive with my sister, quarrelsome with my friends. My mother took me to a psychologist. I sat in that room with a woman with glasses who asked me questions about my feelings, about my family, about school. "Is everything okay at home, John?" she asked. I wanted to scream, wanted to tell, wanted to beg for help, but my grandfather's words echoed in my head. "If you tell, they'll take you from your family. They'll put you in an orphanage. Your parents will hate you for destroying the family." So I lied. Everything's fine. The psychologist diagnosed adolescent anxiety, prescribed me some breathing exercises, said it was a phase that would pass. No one investigated further, no one asked the right questions. At 13, I tried to avoid him. I spent more time in my room, at friends' houses, on the street, anywhere that wasn't near him. But he always found a way, always had an excuse. And when I resisted, when I said I didn't want to, he changed. The mask fell for a second. John, don't disrespect me. I'm your grandfather. You owe me respect. His voice became hard, his eyes cold, and I went back to being that scared 9-year-old boy, trying to understand how the man I loved could hurt me that way. My adolescence was stolen. While my friends went out, dated, had fun, I carried a weight I couldn't share with anyone. I withdrew from everyone, became quiet, withdrawn. My parents thought it was just a teenage phase. He's growing up, my father would say. It'll pass soon. But it didn't pass. It only got worse. When I turned 15, something changed in me. It wasn't a good change. It was as if something inside me had broken for good, and in its place, something else grew. Rage. A dull, constant rage that burned in my chest like embers that never go out. I started thinking about ways to get revenge, violent fantasies that arose in my head while I was at school, on the bus, lying in bed at night. I imagined pushing him down the stairs. I imagined putting poison in his food. I imagined taking a knife from the kitchen But I always stopped there because deep down, as much as I hated what he did, he was still my grandfather. He was still the man who had taken me to the park when I was little. He was still the man who cried when my grandmother died. And that's the hardest part to explain. How can you hate someone and still care about them at the same time? How can your abuser be the same person you love? It's a contradiction that tore me apart inside, but he didn't stop. It didn't matter how many times I tried to get away. He always found a way to trap me in that sick dynamic. And the worst part is that he was getting bolder, more careless, as if he knew I would never tell, as if he knew he had total power over me. At 16, I had my first nervous breakdown. It was at school during math class. Out of nowhere, I started hyperventilating. My vision became blurry. I felt like I was suffocating. The teacher took me to the infirmary. They called my mother. She came to pick me up worried, thinking I was having some heart problem. At the hospital, they did all the tests, heart, lungs, blood, everything normal. The doctor said it had been a panic attack. He prescribed me anxiolytics, but it was just a medication to mask the real problem. Are you stressed about something, John? My mother asked in the car going home. That was the moment. I could tell, could end it all there, but I looked at her tired face after a 12-hour shift at the hospital, and I couldn't. How was I going to destroy our family? How was I going to drop that bomb on her? It's just school, Mom. Too much pressure. She squeezed my hand. It'll be okay, son. You're strong. Strong. I wanted to laugh or cry or both. At 17, I had my first girlfriend, Julia. She was from my class, a pretty girl with curly hair and an easy smile. She liked me, and I tried to like her back. I tried to be normal, tried to kiss her, hold her, be the boyfriend she deserved. But every time she touched me, I froze. My whole body became tense. I felt nauseous. She noticed. Don't you like me? She asked one day. Hurt. It's not that, I tried to explain. It's just that I have some problems. What problems? I couldn't answer. She broke up with me 2 weeks later. She said I was cold, distant, that it seemed like I had a wall around me. She was right. I had built walls so high that no one could climb them, not even someone who really cared. And my grandfather, he was still there, always present, always watching. I could hear him, looking at me during dinner with a half smile on his face, as if he knew exactly what he was doing to me, as if he enjoyed seeing me suffer. At 18, I started thinking about running away, taking the money I had saved from odd jobs and just disappearing, going to another city, starting over where no one knew me, where he couldn't find me. But how was I going to abandon my sister? Emma was only 15. If I left, he might start with her. I couldn't let that happen. I couldn't protect myself at her expense. So I stayed, and every day the rage grew, and with it grew something darker, a desire not just to escape, but to make him pay, to make him feel a fraction of what I felt, to take something precious from him, just as he had taken my childhood, my adolescence, my ability to have a normal life. On the afternoon of Christmas Eve that year, something happened that changed everything. I was at the mall with some friends buying last-minute gifts. When I returned home earlier than expected, I found my grandfather in the second-floor hallway. He was standing in front of my sister's room. The door was ajar. He was looking inside with that expression I knew so well. Something inside me ruptured. I approached silently. Emma was in there with her back turned, changing clothes. She didn't know she was being watched. My grandfather had his hand in his pants pocket, touching himself while looking at my 15-year-old sister. I saw red. I threw myself at him, pushed with all the strength I had. He fell on the hallway floor with a dull thud. Emma heard the noise and came out of the room scared. "What happened?" she screamed. My grandfather got up, adjusting his pants, his face red. But it wasn't red with shame. It was with anger. Anger at being caught. "Your brother pushed me for no reason," he shouted. "This boy is getting violent. He was spying on you," I shouted back, my hands shaking. "He was looking at you, Emma. He was touching himself while looking at you." Emma went white. My grandfather got even redder. "That's a lie." He bellowed. "I would never do that. John is delusional. This boy needs help." Emma looked at me, then at him, confused, scared. She didn't know who to believe. And then she did what any scared teenager would do. She called our parents. My mother and father ran up. My grandfather told his version, playing the victim. He said he had just been passing through the hallway when I attacked him out of nowhere, that I was aggressive, out of control, that he was worried about me. "John, what got into you?" my mother asked, horrified. "He was spying on Emma," I shouted. He was looking at her. "I saw it." "This is absurd," my father said, his voice trembling. "John, you're accusing your grandfather of—" I know what I saw, but they didn't believe me. Or didn't want to believe, because believing would mean admitting something horrible, would mean breaking the perfect image they had of Grandpa Tony. It would mean recognizing that a predator had lived under the same roof as us for years. It was easier to believe I had problems, that I was lying, that I was trying to cause trouble. "You're going to apologize to your grandfather," my father ordered. "Never. Then go to your room and don't come out until you calm down." I went to my room, locked the door, sat on the floor and cried for the first time in years. I cried with rage, with frustration, with despair, because even when I had tried to protect my sister, even when I had exposed him, no one had believed me. That night, lying in bed, I had a revelation. There was no point in telling, no point in exposing. He had built such a solid reputation, such a perfect image, that no one would ever believe the truth. And if no one was going to believe, if no one was going to protect me, then I would have to protect myself and protect my sister at any cost. In the days following until Christmas, I watched him. I watched how he interacted with Emma. He was more careful now, after the incident, but I saw the way he looked at her when he thought no one was paying attention. I saw the way he tried to create situations to be alone with her. It wasn't going to happen. I wasn't going to let him turn my sister into what he had turned me into. It was Christmas Eve. The house was decorated. The tree in the living room glowed with its colored lights, and on top, that crystal star that had belonged to my grandmother. She had bought that star in the first decade of their marriage. It was old, heavy, with sharp points of genuine crystal. I looked at that star and thought about how something so beautiful, so symbolic, could also be so dangerous. On Christmas night, we had dinner. The whole family was there. My parents, Emma, my grandfather, my Aunt Martha, my mother's sister, my Uncle Robert, and my 2 young cousins. The table was abundant, full of food, roasted turkey, stuffing, rice, salads, desserts. Everything smelled good. Everything seemed perfect. A happy family celebrating Christmas. But I could barely eat. Each bite was forced. I looked at my grandfather across the table, smiling, telling jokes, making my cousins laugh. Everyone loved Grandpa Tony. Everyone except me. After dinner, we exchanged gifts. Emma got a new cell phone. I got clothes and a video game I had asked for. My grandfather got a bottle of expensive whiskey from my father. He opened it, poured a shot for himself and for my father. They toasted. "Cheers, Dad. Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas, son." I felt the urge to vomit. Around 11 at night, my aunt and uncle left with the kids. They had school the next day, and it was an hour's drive to their house. My mother started cleaning up the kitchen. My father went to watch TV. Emma went up to her room. I was about to go up too when my grandfather called me. "John, come here for a minute. I want to talk to you." My whole body became tense. I knew what was coming. I always knew. "I'm tired, Grandpa. I want to sleep." "Just a minute," he insisted, his voice soft. "Come with me to my room. I need to give you your real present." Couldn't give it in front of everyone. Something in his tone made me cold. He was drunk. I could see it in the unsteady way he got up from the chair, in the strange shine in his eyes. No thanks. But he was already getting up, already walking toward the hallway. He expected me to follow. And something inside me, some remnant of that obedient 9-year-old boy, made me go. We went up the stairs, went to his room. He opened the door, made me enter, closed it behind us, but this time he didn't lock it. He was too drunk to remember, maybe. "Sit on the bed," he said. "I prefer to stand." He laughed, a low, hoarse laugh. "You've grown up, John. You're not that scared little boy anymore. Now you talk back. Now you have courage." "What present?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He approached, put his hand on my shoulder. I flinched. "The present is me. You always liked our special moments, didn't you?" I felt the bile rising in my throat. "I never liked it. You forced me." He smiled. That smile I hated. "Didn't force you. You were curious. You participated. And now you're a man, John. You must be full of desires. Let Grandpa help you." "No." The word came out louder than I intended. He frowned. "What?" I said. "No. I don't want this. I never wanted it. You abused me for years, and I'm not going to let you do it again. And if you touch Emma, I swear to God that—" He interrupted me with a slap to my face. Hard. My head turned to the side. My cheek burned. "You don't talk to me that way," he hissed, his whiskey breath making me feel nauseous. "I'm your grandfather. I gave you everything. You owe me respect." Something inside me ruptured completely at that moment. All the years of abuse, of silence, of pain, of repressed rage exploded all at once. I pushed him hard. He staggered backward, hitting against the dresser. A picture fell and the glass shattered on the floor. It was a photo of him with my grandmother, smiling, young. "You don't deserve respect," I shouted. "You're a monster. You destroyed my life." He tried to recover, tried to come toward me, but he was too drunk. He tripped over his own feet and fell sitting on the bed. "Get out of my room," he growled. "Get out now before I tell your father what kind of son he has." "Tell him," I said, my voice trembling with rage. "Tell him everything. Tell him what you did to me. Let's see if he believes you again." But we both knew he would. He would always believe his father, not his disturbed son. I left the room, slamming the door. I went down the stairs quickly. My heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. My hands were shaking. I was sweating cold. I got to the living room. The Christmas tree was still lit, the lights blinking softly. It was almost midnight. My mother was still in the kitchen. My father had fallen asleep on the couch watching some movie. I looked at the tree, at the star on top, that beautiful crystal star that my grandmother had chosen decades ago. And then I thought, she would never know. She would never know the type of man she lived with for 42 years. She would never know what he did to her grandson, to her memory. I took a chair, climbed on it, reached for the star. It was heavy, cold to the touch. The points were sharp, genuine crystal, cut at perfect angles. I got down from the chair, held the star in my hands, and then, almost as if I were in a trance, I started going up the stairs again. I didn't think. If I had thought, I would have stopped. I would have gone back to my room. I would have found another way to deal with it. But years of trauma don't let you think rationally. Years of abuse create a type of rage that doesn't obey logic. I opened the door to his room without knocking. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, pouring more whiskey into a glass. He looked at me, surprised to see me there again. "You came back to apologize?" he asked mockingly. I didn't respond. I just approached, the star hidden behind my back. He laughed. "What's wrong? Got scared of your old man? You know that deep down you need me, John. You know that I'll never know exactly what he was going to say, because it was at that moment that I moved. I pushed him back on the bed. He fell surprised, too drunk to react quickly. And then, before I could process what I was doing, before the rational part of my brain could interfere, I pulled his pants down. "What are you?" he started, but stopped when he saw the star in my hand. His eyes widened. Finally, after so many years, I saw fear in them. Genuine fear. "John." "No." But I had already passed the point of no return. I held the star with both hands, and with all the strength I had, all the accumulated rage from years of abuse, I stabbed those sharp crystal points exactly where he had hurt me so many times. His scream was something I'll never forget. High, shrill, full of pain. He tried to get away, but I held on, twisted the star, felt the warm blood running over my hands, felt the crystal sinking into flesh and tissue. And then I heard footsteps running up the stairs. My father arrived first, opened the door, and stopped frozen, trying to process the scene. His 18-year-old son covered in blood, holding a Christmas star stabbed into his own grandfather's body. "John," he shouted, "what did you do?" My mother arrived right after. She saw the blood, saw my grandfather screaming in pain, saw my face covered in tears and blood, and fainted right there in the hallway. I let go of the star. It stayed there stabbed, the red points reflecting the lamplight. My father threw himself on me, pushed me against the wall. "What did you do, John? What did you do? I could have lied, could have made up some story. But I was tired of lying, tired of hiding. What he's been doing to me since I was 9 years old," I said, my voice coming out strangely calm. "I did what you never did." I stopped him. My father looked at me as if he didn't recognize me, as if I were a stranger, a monster. Maybe I was. The ambulance arrived 12 minutes later. The police 15. They took my grandfather first, bleeding, screaming, delirious with pain. Then they took me in handcuffs, still with blood on my hands. Emma was at the top of the stairs, looking at everything in shock. Our eyes met for a second before they took me, and in that second, I saw something in her eyes. Understanding. She knew, maybe not consciously, but deep down she knew that I had done that to protect her as much as to avenge myself. The trial was quick. The evidence was clear. I had attacked my grandfather with a weapon. The prosecution classified the crystal star as a weapon. I had caused serious bodily harm. I had confessed everything on the spot. But my lawyer, a tired public defender with too many cases on his back, managed to do something. He convinced me to tell the whole truth, all the abuse, years of abuse I had kept. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Sitting in a courtroom with strangers looking at me and describing in detail what my grandfather had done to me for almost 10 years. Seeing my mother crying in the galleries. Seeing my father with his face in his hands. Seeing Emma holding my mother's hand. Tears flowing silently. They brought psychologists, did assessments, determined that I suffered from severe post-traumatic stress disorder, that I had acted in an outburst, in a moment of extreme emotional stress. My grandfather, from the hospital bed where he was recovering from surgery, he survived to clarify, although with permanent damage, denied everything. He said I was a disturbed boy who had invented a horrible story to justify a violent and senseless attack. But then, Emma asked to testify. Against my parents' wishes, she took the witness stand and told how Grandpa had started having strange behaviors with her too, how he looked at her inappropriately, how he tried to create situations to be alone, how she had started to fear him but didn't understand why. That changed everything. They investigated further. They found photos, videos, search histories on his computer that confirmed everything. My grandfather wasn't just my abuser. He had a pattern, a compulsion. In the end, he was indicted too. Even from his hospital bed, he faced charges. But I had already been sentenced. 3 years in a juvenile detention center, mandatory psychological treatment, probation after release. I spent my years from 18 to 21 behind bars, in a place full of other broken boys, other boys who had done terrible things for terrible reasons. I did therapy every week. I learned to process the trauma. I learned that what I did was wrong, even though what he did to me was worse. I learned that 2 things can be true at the same time. I was a victim, but I also became a perpetrator. I suffered horrible abuse, but I responded with horrible violence. And both of these truths need to coexist, not cancel each other out. When I got out 8 months ago, I was a different man. Older, more tired, more scarred. My father doesn't talk to me. He still blames me, not his grandfather. Some bonds are impossible to rebuild. My mother tries. She calls me once a month. The conversations are short, strange, full of uncomfortable pauses. She loves me. I know she does. But she also feels she failed, that she should have seen the signs. And that guilt creates a distance I don't know if it will ever be overcome. Emma came to visit me at the detention center a few times. She doesn't blame me. She understands in a way the others don't. She thanked me once, whispered on the phone through the glass during a visit. "Thank you for protecting me." I cried that day. I cried because that was the forgiveness I needed, coming from the only person who mattered. My grandfather survived, but was left with permanent damage. He was sentenced to 10 years for child abuse, possession of illegal material, and other crimes they discovered. He's serving time in a state prison. I could feel satisfaction with that, but I don't. I don't feel anything when I think about him. It's as if that part of me that cared, that felt anything regarding him, had died that Christmas night. Today I live alone in an apartment on the other side of town. I work in a warehouse. It's manual work, tiring, but it keeps me busy. It gives me a routine, gives me a purpose. I still do therapy. I'll probably do it for the rest of my life. I still have nightmares. Sometimes I still have moments where I go back to that night, holding that star, feeling the warm blood in my hands. Do I regret it? That's the question everyone wants to know. And the honest answer is, I don't know. Do I regret becoming violent? Yes. Do I regret causing physical pain to another human being, no matter what he did? Yes. Would I have liked to have found another way? Absolutely. But do I regret stopping him, protecting my sister finally after years, taking control of the situation? No, I don't regret that. And that scares me. It scares me to know that part of me still feels that what I did was necessary, that it was the only option I had at that moment, in that mental state, after everything I had suffered. Living with this contradiction is difficult. Accepting that you can be both victim and villain, that your actions can be simultaneously justified and unjustifiable, that the world isn't black and white, but an infinite scale of gray. If you've been through something similar, if someone hurt you, if you carry trauma that no one sees, I want you to know you're not alone, and help exists. There are ways to process the pain without becoming what hurt you. I didn't do that. I chose violence, and I'll carry the consequences of that for the rest of my life. Not just the legal consequences, but the psychological ones, the guilt, the shame, the awareness that I crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. So, what would you have done in my place when all doors are closed? When no one listens? When the monster is in your own home and no one believes you? I don't have an answer. I only have my story, and the hope that by sharing it, maybe it'll help someone find a better path than mine. The crystal star was destroyed as evidence after the trial. Sometimes I wonder what my grandmother would think if she knew what happened with her favorite Christmas ornament. If she would be horrified by what I did, or if, knowing the truth about the man she lived with, she would understand. I'll never know. Just as I'll never know if I made the right choice. All I know is that I'm John. I'm 22 years old. And that Christmas night, when I stabbed that star, I stopped being the silent victim and became something else. I don't know if that's liberation or just another form of prison. If you made it this far, if you really listened to my story until the end, if you understood the pain and complexity of everything I went through, I need to ask something. Like this video, subscribe to the Traumatic Accounts channel, turn on notification bells, and in the comments tell me what time it is where you are. It doesn't matter if it's morning, afternoon, or late at night. I want to know that there are people listening to me, that there are people who understand that nothing in this life is simple, that victims can become aggressors, that monsters can wear masks of loving grandfathers, and that sometimes the most beautiful star on the tree can become the deadliest weapon. Do it now, because your attention, your engagement, means that my story matters, that I matter, even after everything.